Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll masech the Sanhedrin daf Kuf Dalid. We are going to begin on the bottom of Kuf Gimel Mid Beis. 3 lines on the bottom. Omer Rav Yochanan Mishum Rav Yosi ben Kisma Gedoyla Gima Shaharchika Shtei Mishpacha Yisrael. Great is the act of giving food to guests, because it was marchik, two families from Yisrael. So Rashi says, Achila, Shemachil Orchim. We give food to guests. Who are these two families? Or nations? Ammon and Moab. Says Rashi, Shalafi Shlo Kidmu Yisrael B'lechem Amayim Nichtav Shlo Yovu B'Kahal. Shnemar, as the pasuk says, Al Davar Asher Kidmu Eschem B'lechem Amayim. Since Ammon and Moab didn't give us food, so therefore that shows, by not helping Orchim, this is the punishment that they can't enter Kal Hashem. So it shows, obviously, by someone who does give food to Orchim, that is a high, great mitzvah. That it distances those who are close, brings close those who are far, and it hides the eyes from the wicked. It closes the eyes. And it causes the Shechina to go upon a Navi Sheker. And Shkagos become bemazed. So what does all this mean? So Merachas is a Kroivim. It causes people who are close to go far. Kuf Dal Amud Aleph mi'Ammon Moab, says Rashi, because Kroivim liYisrael Shebo Malot ben Achi Avraham. They were actually close. They were related to us, and because they didn't give food, so therefore Merachik them. Merachava says Rachaikim Yisro. Yom Rav Yochanan B'schar, for the reward that by Yisro it says Karin Lo V'Yoichel Lechem. Come and eat bread. His grandchildren eventually ended up serving in the Sanhedrin in the Beis Hamikdash by the Lishkas HaGazos. Shnemar Mishpachei Seifrim Yoshvi Yavitz. So who is this Yoshvi Yavitz? This person was the Talmud Chacham. So Teratim Shematim Suktim Hema Hakinim Haboim Mechamas Avi Beis Rechev. So it says Hakinim. And we know Viksiv Hasam with Kini Chaisin Moshe. One of Yisro's 7 names was Kini. So therefore we see that coming from the Kinim are people who are going to be in the Lishkas HaGazos. Olu Meir HaTamarim Es B'nei Yehuda. So it went up from the Ir Tamarim, the B'nei Yehuda. Midvar Yehuda Asher B'negev, the matter in the words of Yehuda, which is in the south, Ord V'yelch V'yeshiv Esa'am. Says Rashi, Beis Rechev V'kinim Elu Banav Shel Yisro. These are kids of Yisro. This is V'nei Keni Chaysin Moshe. Okay. Umalas Einayim Min HaRashayim. So what does it mean? Like closes the eyes of the wicked. Mamicha. We learn this from Micha, who, what do we see? It says Rashi, that he gave people who were traveling, he gave them bread. And therefore that's what that's showing, that it closed the eyes of these people who were really Rishayim, because he was able to be saved from his punishment. He had a chayil from Olam Haba. Umishra Shechina al Navi Habal Mechavero Shel Ido Hanavi. Learn this from Ido the Navi. V'hihem Yoshim El Shulchan, and they were sitting by the table. V'hi Davar Hashem El Hanavi. In other words, the matter, the words came to this Navi Sheker. Asher Heshivu, that was there. So Ido said, he said the Mizbeach will be destroyed in Beis El, and he wasn't allowed to eat. But he was tricked, and he did end up eating, as a Navi Habal said, come to my house and prophesize, and come to the Navi Habal. So again, this is what ended up happening, that he ended up eating. He ended up being killed subsequently by bears. Says Rashi, Di'ido Navi Nisnava al Mizbeach is what it says over here clearly, that he was prophesied al Mizbeach Beis El El Shecharav, that's going to be destroyed, Mipnei Shehimid by Yeravam Salamim, because Yeravam and Navat, as we said, put Avodah Zarah there, so therefore it was going to end up being destroyed. The Mizbeach. So he went there, but a Navi Sheker came along and tricked him, and he had him go to his house, and he gave him food. He says, "V'achilu, you should eat here." It was chus shachilu, and the chus that you eat, shar solo shchina. The shchina will come. Shnemar v'hi devar Hashem el ish navi asher hashivu l'achilu etzlo. Okay, weiter. V'shkagasol zadain, a shug will become bemazed. If it wasn't for the fact that if Yonasan would have given just to David shteki karas lechem, just 2 pieces of bread, well, in the Hergo Noiv Yar Kohanim, then the whole city of Nov, what happened? David went to Noiv Yar Kohanim because he needed food, and they provided him basics, and because they did that, so Shaul felt that they were being rebellious, and therefore he sent Doeg HaDoimi, and he had him killed. Nitrad Doeg HaDoimi, he would never have come, and then Shaul and his 3 kids would never have died. So all he had to do was just give a little bit of bread. Says Rashi, David lechem. He wouldn't have had to have asked from the Kohanim of Noiv, and he wouldn't have ended up basically going up against them. Fine. So that's that. Let's look at question 12. Question 12. Ligimo marchekas hakaroivim umikareves as rechaikim malemes ayin min harishayim mishashchina al navish habal b'minis skaimu devar melu. So that's hard. You have to know all 4. So it's merachik the kroivim, that's amon moaf. It's mikarev the rechaikim, that was Yisro. Malemes ayin min harishayim was Micha, because he gave food. And Mishra Shechina al Navi Habal, there was like the Shechina went onto the Navi Sheker, Navi Habal Shehito es Idoi, because the Navi Habal tricked Idoi. Okay. All right. Which is the same question as question TB23. Okay, let's keep going. All right, let's put this over here and let's continue. All right. So now the Gemara asks another question. Why wasn't Achaz mentioned? And we mentioned numerous times that Achaz was the father of Chizkiyahu. And Achaz did a tremendous amount of terrible things, as we saw in yesterday's daf. Right? He was someone who was an Oved Avodah Zarah, and not only that, he did a lot of other things which were detestable. And that, again, this is what's discussed over here on the previous Amud. Okay, so why is he not mentioned? So our answers, because he was placed in between Yosim and Chizkiyahu, which means his father was Yosim, and Chizkiyahu was his son, and both of them were tzaddikim. So since his father and his son were tzaddikim, so therefore he's kind of saved as well. He actually at least showed some element of righteousness, if you will, the fact that he expressed embarrassment when he was in front of Yeshayahu Hanavi. Okay, Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Vayimer Hashem Yeshayahu Tzino Likras Achaz, go and greet Achaz, Ata v'Shar Yishuv, you and the Shar Yishuv, but Bonecha Al could say Ta'alas Havrecha, to the edge of the pool, the upper pool, El Metzilas De Kaivis, to the path of the field of the wanderer. So my Kaivis, what does that mean? So Igdi Amri Di Kavshinhu La'ape, that Achaz hid his face, the Cholaf, and he passed by. The Igdi Amri Uchla De Kitzri, it's a tool of launderers, Sachav Aresha V'Cholaf. Again, he kind of like covered up his face and then he passed by. Says Rashi, Kli Manukav Shel Kaisin. It's some type of a utensil which has holes in it for wanderers. Shemizalfin Bomayim Al Begadim. They would sprinkle garments with this thing. Yoisu Kli Hafach Achaz Aroisha. He put it on his head. Kedeshu Yakiri Shiao Shayim Isbayish Menu. He didn't want to be shown or seen that he was embarrassed in front of Yeshayahu. So Menimalu Manu as Amoin. Amoin, we said, also did a lot of terrible things. So Memnei Kvoidu Shel Yeshayahu, because of the honor of Yeshayahu, which was his son. So even though it's true Amoin was quite bad, but he had a great son, Yeshayahu. So Menashe Namilu Nimnei Kvoidu Shel Chizkiyahu. So Menashe also should be saved because of his father Chizkiyahu. So when it says Bra Mazaki Abba, Abba Mazaki Bra, that a son can give schus to the father, and therefore, if your son is a tzaddik, even though you're Russia, that could save you, such as Amoin, because his son was Yeshayahu. However, a father cannot be mazaka to his son. So the fact that the father was a great person, that doesn't help the son. It's only when the son is great that helps the father. So that's the difference between Menashe, who happened to have a great father. So that's not a schus. Pumfakert. You can look at it and say, the fact that your father was such a big tzaddik and you're a Russia, so you didn't learn from your father, so then, of course, that's not going to help you, the son. However, if you're a father who seemingly on paper was a Russia, but it turned out that you had a good son, you must have done something right, and therefore, in your son's schus, so that you're spared. Okay. Dechsiv ein midi matzil. There's nothing that's saved. Ein Avraham matzil as Yishmael. In other words, Avraham will not save his son Yishmael. Ein Yitzchak matzil as Esav. Yitzchak the father will not save his son Esav. So Hasha, so Hachi Achaz Nami will imni. So Achaz Taka also shouldn't be counted. Mishim Kavayda Shel Chizkiyahu. Because as we said on numerous times, that Achaz was the father of Chizkiyahu. So the fact that he had a great son, that is the reason why Achaz was is not mentioned, because of the schus of his father, of his son. Okay, fine. How about Yehoyakim, who was a terrible person? So Mishum Rabbi Chia Baravavua, dear Rabbi Chia Baravua, Ksiv Al Gilgaltai Shel Yehoyakim, on the skull of Yehoyakim, it says Zeis Vaydacher. So we had this before in Daf Pei Beis. So this is a revenge and also something else. So so it goes through it, I guess, the story again. Zakina to Reb Preda. So the elders of Reb Preda, Ashka Gilgalta, they found a skull. The Havika Shadi B'Shar Yerushalayim, was like lying in the gates of Yerushalayim. Ksiba Zeis Vaydacheres. Cover, they buried it. V'lo Yikbura. It wasn't able to remain buried. It kept being revealed. Cover v'lo Ikvra, again. Omer, they said, must be that Gulgulta Shel Yehoyakim. This must be the skull of Yehoyakim. D'chsib be Kvuras Chamor Yikaver. That it's just like the burying of a donkey, which is not a real full burial. Schar v'hishlich v'goymer. That his bones will be thrown around. Omer Malka, who must be, he's a king. It's not proper to have his skull not buried, so we can't bury him, but at least karcha b'shiroi. So you wrapped the skull up in nice cloth, v'oisva and they put it, as Rashi says, in argaz. I'm not sure, we already had this, but it says there's a couple extra Rashis here. He put it in a chest. Chazis de Besu, so his wife encountered this one day. Savar hadi issa kamaisa havoy. He thought that she thought this was the skull of his first wife. That he's just not forgetting her, so he wanted to keep her around. Shagra tenura, so she took the thing and threw it into fire. V'kolsen, it burnt up. So, because of this great busha that Yoyakim went through after he died, so therefore that was enough of a kapara. Tanya Omer of Shimon ben Elazar, b'shvil, because of that which was said by Chizkiyahu, Hatay b'necha sisi, that was good in your eyes, I'll do. Ma ois, b'shvil ma ois, Nachrim achu al shulchanoi, that Nachrim ate upon your table. B'shvil shenachrim achu al shulchano garm gol savanov, that caused exile to your children. Messiah lechizki diyomer chizki, he said, kol mazami novi kachavim l'tach beso. Anyone who brings novi kachavim to your house, mishamish shalav, and you have him enjoy your things. So garim gol savanov, it caused exile to your son. Shenever v'necha asher yotzum yimecha asher toylid yichu, that they will be taken. In other words, Bavel will take them. While Yisurisim behechel melech Bavel, and the servants of the Hechel melech is Bavel. So this is what happened. So V'yishach aleim Chizkiya. So V'yismach aleim Chizkiya was rejoicing. Yarim as koil base nichta, that he showed him this whole location. It's a kesef, it's a zahav, that's a basam, Hashem and a tayv. He showed all these great things, silver, gold, and the like. Omer mai nichta. What is that referring to? So ishto hashkasa aleihim. It's referring to his wife that was serving them. Shmuel Omer beis genazav hirolahem. He actually showed him a treasure house. Rabbi Yochanan Omer zayin oichel zayin harolahen, that a metal consumes metal. So what is that referring to? It was a secret of how to be able to make very strong, powerful iron. Fine, that's that. Eicha yashva b'dad. So now we're going to learn a little bit about Eicha, which we say on Tisha B'Av night. So what does that mean? So Rav Yochanan loku Yisrael be'Eicha. Why were we punished with Eicha, with Mibnei Shavira Shleishim V'Sheish Krisos Shabbatayra, because we violated 36 krisos in the Torah and found Masechtas Krisos, and therefore we were punished with Eicha, which is the Gematria 36. Rav Yochanan Mibnei Ma Loku Ba'Alef Beis. Why Aleph Beis? Why is Eicha Aleph Beis? Mibnei Shavira L'Torah Shnitna Ba'Alef Beis, because we violated the Torah, which was given in Aleph Beis. On this, Rav Schwab says the Aleph Beis means order, that there is based on nature and sequence is all predictable, but the Bnei Israel is above nature. Nature would say that the Jewish nation shouldn't exist, but when we wish to act like a goy, then everything is just like nature, so that's not good. That's why, like the fact that we said we want to have a king, maybe that's okay, but Kachol HaGoyim is the problem. Then, if that's how we are, then we're destroyed based on Teva. But the Torah starts, interesting enough, Bereshis, with a Beis. It's not written in the proper order, because we're L'mal Min Teva. So Bnei Yisrael, when we have, or B'Seder, that equals destruction. So the Aleph Beis is actually not necessarily a good thing, as explained by Rav Schwab. He considers it like Derech HaTeva. Yoshva Badad, Oimer Rava, Oimer Rabbi Yochanan, Omer Kadosh Baruch Ani Amarti, V'yishkan Yisrael Betach Badad, that they'll be able to live with calmness. So Ein Yaakov El Eretz Degan V'Tirosh that there'll be a spring of Yaakov by the land, there'll be grain and wine. Shoma Yarfu Tal, also the Shemayim will drop forth dew. Now you're going to be alone and lonely. Ha'ir Rabba Siyam, which is a nation of multitude. They would have the young marry the old, and old marry the young. Why? So they have a lot of kids, says Rashi. Ketanu Gadoil. Shechva Zera Shel Katan Enu Mavushal. Ve'enu Mazriya Maher. It doesn't, they won't be able to produce as well, Kishel Gadol. L'chein Rechem Shel Katana Enu Koiletis Maher, Kishel Gadoila. Lafikach Masin Gadoila Katan. So Gadoila is with a katan. Kedei L'kishtehe Zara Mavushal, Koilet Maher. V'Katana L'Gadol Kedei Shechva Zara Koilet Maher. V'Katana L'Katan, not a young to a young, Shishayin L'Hoilid, that'll be take more time to give birth. V'Katan V'Katana Mamish El Oimdin Al Pirkan V'Ruyin Haim L'Hoilid. Okay. Haisa Ke'almana. Haisa Ke'almana, we're like a widow. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav Ke'almana V'Almana Mamish El K'ish Shalach Ba'alam Dis Hayam V'Daitel V'Achsar Leha. It's like Hashem left, but our intention is to come back. So it's not like the Bnei Israel is like an almana, it's like a widow, but not like a garusha. It's not a divorce, right? The Bnei Israel never received a get from Hashem, but rather we're longing for His return. Rabasi b'goyim sarti b'medinos. They exalted among the nations. No matter where we went, even though we're in exile, we always elevate ourselves above everyone else. That they were held captive, these two people in the Har Carmel. And Shabtai was going after them as we continue to cook Daladam and Beis. So one of them said, to his friend, Gamal Shemalechas Lofanenu, Suma Ba'achas Meineha, that this camel which is going in front of us is blind in one eye. Meineha, V'tu'una Shtei Noidos, it's holding two flasks, Achas Shel Yain V'achas Shel Shem, one of oil, one of wine. U'shnei B'nei Adam Ham Nahigin Oisa, and the two people are leading this animal. Echad Yisrael ve'echad Nachri. One's a Jew, one's not. So Lehen Shabtai. So the captor said, 1 second. Amkashi Aref, you're a stiff-necked nation. Me'ainatem yoidin. How did you ascertain all that information so fast? So Melo Gamal Miatzavim Sholofaneha Mitzad. So the camel Miatzavim with grass Sholofaneh in front of it. Mitzad Shiroya Echelas Mitzad She'enu Roya Enu Echelas. So it's eating only on one side. Why is it only eating one side of grass? It must be because it's blind in the other eye. The other eye can't see the other side, so therefore it's not eating. I know one is oil, one is wine. That the wine, it splashes and it absorbs inside. However, oil, it doesn't absorb it, it stays on the ground. Nachri nifnul aderech. The Nachri went to the bathroom on the road himself. You saw nifnul stadim, but the Yid, Koy was a Yid because he was sneas and he went to the side to relieve himself. So Radavachar, and they pursued them. It turned out that was exactly as he said. Bav and Nashkan al Rosh, and they kissed them, and they let him go back to their home. The Yasel and Suda Gedoyel of Hayim Maraki Lufanenu. There was a big meal. They were very fortunate. V'Omer Baruch Shevarchar Bezano Shel Avraham. Blessed is Hashem that chose this Zar Shel Avraham. V'Naslhem Echachmasai, that gave them wisdom. V'Chol Makam Shehin Hoyachin Nasim Sarim Ladunei. No matter where they are, it gives us the ability to elevate ourselves above everything else. So you see that this is what Torah does. Torah gives you a different mindset, a different perspective to be able to see things in a way that you wouldn't have seen them before. Upater freed them, and went to peace. Bachli tivke, Bolaila, so they cried and they cried. Why twice? So shtei b'chiyos lo lama alma rabo im Rabbi Yochanan echad shel mikdash rishon echad shel mikdash sheni, because one's referring to the first base of mikdash and the second base of mikdash. Bolaila, at night, al iski laila shnemar v'tisa kol edav yinu es koyel v'yivchu am bolailahu, that they raised up their voice and they cried on that night. So Omer Rabbi and Rabbi Yochanan oisa hayayim wel Tisha B'av haya, it was then at Tisha B'av. You're crying for nothing. I'm going to give you something to cry about for all future generations. Anyone who cries at night because it's quiet, you'll hear your voice. Anyone who cries at night, then the stars and constellations cry with you. Anyone who cries at night, those who hear your voice will cry opposite you. Masbi Shach is a story. Shechinasa Shel Rabbi Gamliel was actually the neighbor of the great Rabbi Gamliel, Shemes Minah, that her son died. She was crying. Shem Rabbi Gamliel Koyel Uvacha Kenegda. Rabbi Gamliel cried too. Ad Shenishra Risi Einav, until his eyelids fell out from crying so much. The students recognized Mishkanaiso, and they asked her to please leave the neighborhood. In other words, because living next to someone who is so sensitive to everyone around him, said, he can't live near Rabbi Gamliel because this is going to just devastate him. Udamasam al lechiyah, the crying on the cheeks. Omer Rabbi and Rabbi Yochanan kiisha shabaycha al baila noreha. It's like a woman who cries over her young husband. Shenemar ali kibsula chagar sak, that she's crying like a basula who's girded in sackcloth. Al baila noreha, regarding the husband of her youth. The enemies will be the head. Omer Rabbi, Omer Rabbi Yochanan, Kol hametzel Yisrael nasarosh. Anyone who is causes anguish to the Klal Yisrael, they also are elevated. We don't have the low people destroy us, but only the highest. Shnemar kilo moyef la'asher mutzakla. There'll be no tiredness for those who oppress us. Ke'es harishain heikal, like the original who's minor, arts of Zavulun, arts of Naphtali, b'acharoin hichbid. And then the last ones are hichbid, are like heavier. Derech hayom ever hayardin gola hagoyim. So this is referring to when Sanhedrin kicked the Bnei Israel out. Okay. Derech hayom ever hayardin gola hagoyim. Omer Rabbi Rabbi Yochanan kol hamatzik l'Yisrael. Anyone oppresses the Yidden, enu ayif. Literally, they're not tired. Lo aleichem koil oivri darech. It's not upon you, all the travelers of the road. Amar Rabbi Rabbi Yochanan mekan lekublana minatayra kol oivri derech. Okay. Let's see if there's a Rashi on this. Okay. All right. Weiter. Amar Rabbi Amar Rabbi Hosseini Ka'ivri das. It's as though you made me like a violator, someone who violates das Hashem. Deal bestoying seva Hashem himter al Sadaim. When it comes to Sadaim, Hashem caused this destruction with fire. Deal Yerushalayim siv mimodam shalch eish b'atzmoisai, that from above fire was sent. The Yerdena legoimer, and it broke. We were broken. Uksiv yigdal avoin bas ami mechatoi Sodom. That is even worse, the sin of our nation, than the sin of Sodom, because we have the Torah, and therefore we should have known better than Sodom. So we're held more accountable. The chimasu panim yesh b'dav. I understand we show like favoritism. So this says Rashi at the top. The chimasu panim yesh b'dav hoyel V'hoyel v'Yisrael royim yosim Sodom, since we're worse than Sodom, lomu nehevchu k'Sodom. L'chayr, we should have been overturned just like Sodom. Lashon achar v'chim yishom mastim yesh b'davar the chosim ksiv v'Hashem himtir hu ba'atzma Hashem did it himself v'halcha ksiv shalach al yedei shliach. So Omer Rav Omer Rav Yochanan Mida Yisrael Haisim Yerushalayim Shal Haisim Esnaim. There's a Mida Taiva, something greater of Yerushalayim that was not regarding to Sodom. Says Rashi. To Yerushalayim Ksiv Yidei Nashim Rachmaniyos. Even the most the kindest women were Bishli and Nehem. They literally cooked their children. Hayu Lahavrais Lamoy Shahaisim Mizamenes Chavrasa Vaychelos Bena Alma Rachmanius Haya. At least it shows that they're compassionate. And Shem Rachmanis. Ve'il b'stoim ksiv Yad Oni v'Evyoin l'hechzika Umidazu kapara lehem shalonevchu Lashon acher mida yisera paranyos gedayos Yerushalayim is great punishments. Shel dehem hayoichazu etzu, they used to consume each other. V'il b'stoim ksiv goin shivas lechem shel tamu tam oini, they never experienced poverty. Halamate gadol paranyos Yerushalayim paranyos Sodom. So actually, Yerushalayim was punished worse than Sodom. V'lo hayo masa panim b'davar. Okay, so I that Rashi. Okay. So the ilu b'Sodom, back in the Gemara Ksiv, hine zeh haya avin Sodom achaischa goin shivas savas lachem v'yad oni v'evyoin lo hechzika v'gaimer. So when it comes to Sodom, maybe they were not as bad because they actually didn't have the same punishment because we didn't. At least they were wealthy. There was no one of any poverty. The ilu b'stoim ksiv. So that's 1 second. Ksiv so mida yisera ha'is Yerushalayim shlo ha'is b'stoim. The ilu b'stoim ksiv hini zeh haya avan Sodom achos gain sevas lecha v'yad ani v'evyoin lo hechzik v'gamer v'il Yerushalayim ksiv yedei nashim rachmaniyos bishul yaldeim. So they fed their neighbors with it. So let's look at question 13. V'yigdal avayin bas amni mechatas Sodom hayel v'Yisrael royim hayim Sodom. Apparently they're worse. Lomo nehevchu k'Sodom. They should have been turned around like Sodom. V'chimas apanim yesh b'davar. So one answer, the second one, which just did, is Paranis is Sarah. Actually, Yerushalayim had it worse than Sodom, because Sodom, they never tasted the taste of poverty, but the pasuk says that the women would feed their young, right? So that's one answer. Or Yerushalayim hayu rachmanim. At least those people showed elements of compassion, and therefore, because of that, they were spared. Okay, so those are the two ways to look at it. All right. Which is exactly the same question as TB24. So let's just mark that down on Kuf Daled Amud Beis. So let's find, this is TB24. Let's see what I wrote. Toyol Habanos Yisrael Rachmaniyos L'Shcheinav L'Noisin Basar Lehem Ze Yoser Toiv Ma'anshi Sodom. Or Neshei Sodom Misos Miyad Below Tsar Lazman Maruba Mashcheni Yisrael Shesar Lazamin Lazman Maruba V'Zeh Kashal Hem Michel Anshi Sodom. So that is not the correct answer, right? So I'm going to cross that out. But it's because of Sodom were not poor. Okay, so that's as opposed. So it's the opposite. Okay, let's look at question TA. Question TA 23. Madua b'alf beis. Okay, we didn't get to that yet. We'll see that soon. All right, weiter. All right. Okay. Silu kol avri Hashem. So will be trampled a path upon the great ones of Hashem. Hashem bekir by fine. Ka'adam sh'ayim l'chaver, like a person to his friend, nifsala matbe'ezu, that this coin is no longer worth anything. Basically, since the coin has no meaning, this is also basically how a person would say that they've been completely trampled upon, and there's nothing left. Says Rashi, Kol he varim pasla kadosh baruch hu also psulim. So kimsil zu v'hainu damil matbeya shenifsala ve'ein lo takana. It's like a worthless coin which can never be fixed. It can never be repaired. Okay, fine. Psulecha pihem. We open up their mouths. Amar Rav Yochanan b'shvil ma hikdim peil ayin. So this is an unbelievable thing that for some reason, even though it's an Aleph Beis, but the Pei and the Ayin Psukim aren't out of order. Instead of it being Samach Ayin Pei, it's Pei Ayin, except for the first parak. The idea of why it's the first parak is in proper order is because, as it says here, B'shvil Meragim Shomer B'fiyam Mashul Rabineim, that they allowed their Peh to go before the ayin. Their mouth went before the eye. So therefore it's written in that particular order, excluding the first parak, in which the first parak is written in order, because even though the Meraglim spoke lies, but you have to start off with MS. That's how some people learn it. So this is question TA 23. So it's like a form of like prejudice, if you will, that they spoke before they really looked into the matter. And very interestingly enough, the Shabbos preceding Tisha B'Av, which is usually Parshas Devarim, where we talk about the Meraglim, it's called Shabbos Chazon, a Shabbos of vision, of seeing, because that's really the whole mistake of the spies, is that they were a form of prejudice, if you will, that they prejudged. Okay. Oyichle ami ochel lachem, to devour my nation consuming bread. Hashem lo karu. Hashem doesn't call to you. Omer Rabbi Rav Yochanan kol oichel melachem and Yisrael. Anyone who eats from the bread of a yid, toim tam lechem, they can taste bread. V'sheinu oich toim tam lechem. V'sheinu oichel melachem and Yisrael, and toim tam lechem. Hashem lo karu. Rabbi Omer elu hadayonim. This is referring to the judges. Shmuel Omer elu melamdi tinaikis. This is referring to the teachers. Says Rashi she'oisen melachden rumia. Okay. Mimonon, who counted them? So Rav Anshi Knesset Gedoyel Monom. Anshi Knesset Gedoyel counted them. Rav Yehuda Rav Bikshu Oid Limnois Echad. They wanted to count another. So Shlomo Melech came the most to Yoinkai Shalaviv, like his father David. V'nishtatcha lifneim. He bowed down in front of them. V'loshkichu, and they didn't pay any attention to him. Ba eish min hashemayim, fire came. V'licha eish b'safsalehem, and scorched with fire their benches. V'loshkichu, they still didn't care. Yotza baskol v'aimra lehem, who said chazisa, you should see ish mahir b'malachta, someone who's swift in their work. Lifnei malachim yisyasev. Bal Yisyasev, do not dwell lifnei chashuchim, those people who are in the dark, which is referring to people who are going to Gehenna, says Rashi, Gehenom. Mi shehikdim beso, someone who made my house before yours, v'oid el shebesi bana b'sheva shanim, that he actually built it 7 years, beso bana b'shol shesrei. But his house, it took him 13 years to build. So he went quickly in the building of the Beis Hamikdash, but Sholosh Esri Shana for his own honor. It took him much longer because it wasn't as important, his house. So he was hikdim his house, the Beis Hamikdash, before his own house. Lifnei Mulachim Yisasev Kol Yisasev Lifnei Chashuchim Lo Shkiach Alel. Yotzabaskov Yomer. So heavenly voice came out and said, Tami Amcha, from you Yishalmena, you'll be complete. Ki Ma'asto, because of the destruction. Ki Ata Tivchar, you're chosen. V'lo Ani V'Gaimer, not I. Darshi Rishumois Hayi Oyimrim Kulan Boiloim Haba. The truth is, every single person, even though we've been talking that a lot of people are not going to go to Olam Haba, there's actually going to be people that will go to Olam Haba, including Menashe, Yeravam, and Achav, Shnemar. Li Gilad, Vli Menashe, Ephraim, Oiz Rashi, Yehuda, Mechaike, Moav. Sid Raksi al Edoim Ashlech Naali. So what is this referring to? So Ali Pleshus his Roi Li Gilad V'li Menashe Ze Achav Shenafel B'Ramos Gilad. This is referring to Achav, that he'll be part of Olam Haba. This is where he was actually killed, as we mentioned, by Ramos Gilad. He was tricked to go to Ramos Gilad, and that's where Achav died. Menashe Kemash Ma'oi. Menashe is pretty clear from the pasuk itself. Ephraim, Ma'oiz, Rashi, Ze Yeravam, to Ka'asim Ephraim. Since he came from Ephraim, so that's who we're referring to, Yeravam. Yehuda Mechaikike, Yehuda, my teacher, Zachi Teufel, which was David's Rebbe, as we continue to Kuf Hey Amid Aleph. The Ka'asim Yehuda, he came from Yehuda. Moav, as Sir Rachzi, this is a washing basin. Zeg Gechazi. This Gechazi Shalok al Iski Rachitza, that he was initially punished due to bathing. Says Rashi, Gechazi Shesar Umitzaraya al Iski Rachitza. He got saras because of this. So he was punished when Namun came from the water and was cleansed from saras. Pinchas didn't accept the gift. Gechazi ran after him. Al edaim ashech nali zed doig edaimi. Olai pileshes hisroi. This is my pileshes, my friends. Im yavad David shaharges hapilagshi. If David, who killed this Philistine, namely Goliath, v'hoyrish es banecha gas, and his children inherited this location. Mata Isalo, what are you to do to him? Amalahem olai lasaisin reim zelazeh. To me, Hashem, they will be made as friends again. Let's see if there's a Rashi on this. Okay, we'll stop there. Let's see if maybe there's another question. Let's see, not there. Question 14. Elu heim gimel hamalachim shimanu an sheganes gedoyo she'en lehem chelak olam haba yasmi bikshu limnois imehen umino mishamayim. So this is on Daf Kuf, but also a little bit over here. So it was in our Mishnah, Yeravam, Achav, and Menashe. Ubikshu limno says Shlomo u'minashmaim ikvu. So it was held back. Shlomo HaMelech. That's why it says this pasuk on the previous Amud that they wanted to include Shlomo HaMelech, but he was removed. Adkan.